The massive holographic display in the United Earth Defense Command Center flickered with static as Admiral James Harrison studied the approaching signals. His weathered face, marked by decades of military service, reflected the blue glow of the screen. The year was 2157, and humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. "Admiral, we're receiving transmission on all frequencies," announced Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "The signal pattern matches nothing in our database." Harrison's deputy, Colonel Marcus Williams, a tall man with dark skin and cybernetic enhancements, leaned forward. "They're not trying to hide. Whatever's out there wants to be seen." The signal clarified, revealing a fleet of vessels unlike anything human eyes had witnessed before. Sleek, crystalline ships that seemed to bend light around them, approaching Earth's orbit with deliberate precision. The Krylothian Empire had arrived. First contact was nothing like the countless simulations humanity had run. The Krylothians, led by High Chancellor Vorax, presented themselves as mentors, guides to help humanity join the galactic community. Their ambassador, Nexus Vrel, a towering figure with iridescent scales and multiple sets of eyes, spoke of peace and technological exchange. "Your species shows remarkable potential," Vrel had said during the first diplomatic meeting in Geneva. "The Krylothian Empire wishes only to guide you toward your destiny among the stars." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, wasn't convinced. Working from her laboratory in the Atacama Desert, she studied the minimal biological samples the Krylothians had shared. "Their genetic structure suggests evolution in an environment of constant competition," she reported to the Defense Council. "Their entire biology is built around dominance." The warning signs were there, but humanity's excitement at finding they weren't alone in the universe overshadowed their caution. The Krylothians established bases on Mars and Venus, claiming they were research outposts for joint scientific ventures. They shared medical technology that cured several terrestrial diseases and helped establish the first permanent lunar colony. Admiral Harrison remained skeptical. "They're playing a long game," he confided to Colonel Williams during a secure meeting in the Cheyenne Mountain complex. "Every piece of technology they've shared has been carefully chosen, nothing that could give us real independence." His suspicions were confirmed when Captain Ray Nakamura, commanding the deep space research vessel Horizon, discovered the truth. The Krylothian bases weren't research stations. They were forward military installations. The diplomatic fleet in orbit carried enough firepower to glass continents. "Send this to Earth immediately," Nakamura ordered her communications officer, even as Krylothian warships began powering up their weapons. The Horizon never made it home, but its final transmission did. The attack came without warning. Krylothian weapons platforms, hidden in plain sight as communication satellites, activated simultaneously. Earth's major military installations were hit first, precision strikes that decimated humanity's defensive capabilities. In orbit, Admiral Harrison watched helplessly as the Krylothian fleet revealed its true nature. Ships that had posed as peaceful visitors transformed, weapons systems emerging from previously invisible sections of their hulls. "All units, defensive positions," he ordered, knowing it was already too late. The first wave of the invasion lasted less than 6 hours. Every major military base on Earth was destroyed. The lunar colony, humanity's pride, was occupied. Mars fell silent. But in those 6 hours, humanity learned something about itself, something the Krylothians hadn't counted on. In New Delhi, when Krylothian ground forces landed, they found the city's quantum research facility stripped bare, its scientists gone underground with their work. In Brazil, farmers turned their agricultural drones into improvised explosive devices. The Australian outback became a death trap of guerrilla warfare. Dr. Rodriguez, working from a hidden bunker beneath the Andes, made a crucial discovery. "Their biology isn't just about dominance," she transmitted to the remaining military command. "It's about predictability. They can't comprehend actions that don't follow logical patterns of survival." And humanity, facing extinction, proved to be anything but predictable. Admiral Harrison, coordinating what remained of Earth's forces from a mobile command center in the Pacific, received the message. A smile crossed his face for the first time since the invasion began. Then let's show them just how illogical humanity can be. The resistance began not with a counterattack, but with 1,000 small acts of defiance. Civilian communication networks, supposedly destroyed, came back online using repurposed gaming servers. Factory workers sabotaged production lines making components for Krylothian weapons. University students turned their chemistry knowledge to creating new explosives. Colonel Williams, leading a guerrilla force in the African Congo, discovered another weakness. "They can't adapt quickly," he reported after his forces destroyed a Krylothian patrol using primitive traps and modern thermite charges. "They stick to their tactical doctrine even when it's failing." The Krylothians had expected humanity to either surrender or fight conventionally. They weren't prepared for a species that would rather destroy its own infrastructure than let it fall into enemy hands. They couldn't comprehend humans who would sacrifice tactical advantage for strategic surprise. As the first month of occupation drew to a close, High Chancellor Vorax received a disturbing report. Despite controlling Earth's orbit and possessing superior technology, the Krylothian Empire had secured less than 10% of the planet's surface. Their casualties were mounting, and human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. "Impossible," Vorax declared, his scales shifting color with agitation. "They have no central command, no unified strategy, no advanced weapons. How can they still be fighting?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior Krylothian analyst studying human entertainment media made a startling observation. "They've been preparing for this for centuries," the analyst reported. "Not with weapons or technology, but with stories. They've imagined every possible way they might be invaded, and now they're using those imaginations against us." In the ruins of Washington, D.C., Admiral Harrison received word that the first counterattack was ready. Humanity had spent a month learning, adapting, and preparing. Now it was time to show the Krylothians why they should have heeded their own analysts' warnings. "All units," he broadcast on the secure network Dr. Rodriguez had helped develop. "Operation Phoenix begins at dawn." Operation Phoenix began not with a bang, but with silence. Across Earth's occupied territories, the remaining human communication networks went dark. Krylothian commanders initially celebrated, believing their jamming technologies had finally succeeded. They couldn't have been more wrong. Deep beneath the ruins of Tokyo, Dr. Hikaru Sato watched lines of code scroll across his holographic display. The former quantum computing researcher had spent weeks preparing for this moment. "Quantum entanglement network active," he reported to the resistance cell around him. "They can't jam what they can't detect." The Krylothians had destroyed Earth's conventional communication infrastructure, but they hadn't counted on human ingenuity. Dr. Sato and his team had repurposed experimental quantum computers, creating a network that existed outside normal space-time. It was crude, limited, and by all scientific logic shouldn't have worked, but it did. In orbit, Commander Nadia Petrov floated in the darkness of a supposedly abandoned space station. Her team of cosmonauts had spent a month playing dead, allowing the Krylothians to dismiss the station as debris. Now, as Operation Phoenix began, they powered up systems that had been carefully modified for their true purpose. "Ready for broadcast," she whispered into her quantum comm unit. The station's communication array, rebuilt with salvaged Krylothian technology, would serve as the linchpin of humanity's first coordinated counterattack. On the ground, Colonel Williams led his forces through the Congo rainforest. His cybernetic enhancements, originally designed for battlefield coordination, had been reprogrammed to interface with Dr. Sato's quantum network. "All teams in position," he reported. "Beginning Phase 1. Phase 1 was psychological warfare on a scale never before attempted. Dr. Rodriguez's research had revealed that Krylothian neural patterns were highly susceptible to certain frequencies. While not lethal, these frequencies could cause extreme disorientation. Through Commander Petrov's orbital array, humanity broadcast a carefully crafted signal. In every Krylothian installation, the invaders suddenly found themselves struggling to maintain basic motor functions. Their highly evolved brains, accustomed to processing information in predictable patterns, couldn't cope with the chaotic frequencies. Admiral Harrison, watching from his mobile command center now hidden in the Himalayan mountains, gave the order for Phase 2. All resistance cells, execute according to plan. Remember, adaptation is our strength. Across the globe, humanity struck back. But not with conventional warfare. The Krylothians had expected that. Instead, each region used tactics specifically adapted to their environment and resources. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal guides led resistance fighters through ancient songlines, paths invisible to Krylothian sensors. Their targets weren't the invaders' weapons or ships, but their environmental systems. The Krylothians, evolved for specific atmospheric conditions, found their carefully regulated bases becoming uninhabitable. Silicon Valley's surviving tech workers unleashed viral algorithms into captured Krylothian systems. The viruses didn't try to destroy, they introduced subtle errors, making the invaders doubt their own technology. Supply shipments went to wrong locations. Sensor readings became unreliable. Communication suffered random delays. In Russia's frozen tundra, Dr. Natasha Volkov had discovered another Krylothian weakness. Their molecular structure becomes brittle at extremely low temperatures, she reported through the quantum network. Resistance fighters began using liquid nitrogen weapons, freezing the invaders' exoskeletons. The Krylothians responded with overwhelming force, but found themselves fighting shadows. Humanity had learned to coordinate without centralizing, to strike without massing forces, to communicate without broadcasting. Every Krylothian tactical doctrine was systematically undermined. High Chancellor Vorax, watching his occupation force's effectiveness plummet, faced a disturbing realization. The humans weren't trying to win battles, they were changing the nature of the war itself. These primitives, he raged to his command staff, they're violating every principle of strategic warfare. Their tactics make no sense. But they did make sense to humans who had spent centuries telling stories about resisting powerful invaders. Each defeat taught them new lessons, every setback sparked new innovations. In her Andean laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez made another breakthrough. Studying captured Krylothian technology, she discovered they had never developed certain branches of physics. They went straight from mechanical to quantum, she explained to Admiral Harrison. They don't understand transitional technologies. This insight proved crucial. While the Krylothians could defend against primitive weapons and their own advanced technology, they struggled against human innovations that fell between these extremes. Guided bullets with simple computers, chemical reactions triggered by mechanical switches, analog devices in a digital age. Commander Petrov's orbital station became a hub for coordinating these hybrid attacks. They expect either spears or energy weapons, she noted. They don't expect a spear that carries an electromagnetic pulse. The resistance grew stronger each day, but not through central planning or superior firepower. Humanity's strength lay in its diversity, its ability to approach problems from countless different angles simultaneously. Colonel Williams demonstrated this during the Battle of Kinshasa. His forces used ancient hunting techniques combined with modern thermal imaging to track Krylothian patrols. Local metallurgists developed alloys that confused alien sensors. University students reprogrammed civilian drones for reconnaissance. Evolution isn't just about growing stronger, Dr. Rodriguez observed as reports of successful operations flooded the quantum network. It's about becoming more adaptable, and humans have been practicing adaptation since we first picked up tools. By the end of the second month, the Krylothian occupation faced a crisis. Their forces controlled high-value targets and maintained orbital supremacy, but they couldn't secure their supply lines. Their superior technology was being countered by innovations they couldn't predict. Their strategic algorithms failed to account for human improvisation. Admiral Harrison, reviewing the latest intelligence, allowed himself a moment of hope. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore," he told his staff. "We're fighting for our place among the stars." As Operation Phoenix entered its final phase, humanity prepared to take its biggest risk yet. Dr. Sato's quantum network had detected a vulnerability in Krylothian orbital defenses. Commander Petrov's station had mapped their patrol patterns. Dr. Rodriguez had prototypes of hybrid weapons ready for deployment. "All units," Harrison broadcast, "prepare for Phase 3. It's time to take back our sky." The message echoed through the quantum network, reaching resistance cells around the globe. Humanity had learned to fight back on the ground. Now they would show the Krylothians that Earth's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology. It was the unpredictable, innovative, relentlessly adaptable human spirit. The reclaimed SpaceX facility in the Mojave Desert hummed with activity as Dr. Omar Hassan made final adjustments to his creation. The modified fusion reactor, a hybrid of human innovation and reverse-engineered Krylothian technology, represented humanity's best chance at reaching orbit. Around him, engineers and scientists from 20 different nations worked in synchronized chaos, preparing for what could be Earth's most important mission. "Power output stable at 120% of theoretical maximum," he announced, his voice carrying both pride and disbelief. "They said it couldn't be done, called it a violation of their laws of physics." Admiral Harrison, who had traveled from the Himalayan Command Center for this moment, smiled grimly. "That's because they never had to break their own rules to survive, Doctor. How many ships can we power?" 15, Dr. Hassan replied. "Not warships by their standards, more like heavily armed tugboats. But they'll fly, and they'll hit harder than anything that size should be able to." Operation Icarus, as the space offensive was coded, represented humanity's greatest gamble. While the ground war had become a quagmire for the Krylothians, they still maintained absolute control of Earth's orbit. Breaking that control would require something unprecedented. Commander Petrov, coordinating from her hidden orbital station, had spent weeks mapping gaps in Krylothian patrol patterns. "They're methodical to a fault," she reported through the quantum network. "Every 12 hours, there's a 3-minute window when their orbital coverage shifts. It's not much, but it's all we need." The assault ships were unlike anything ever built. Chief Engineer Jun Park had led the design team, combining racing yacht aerodynamics with military stealth technology and Krylothian power systems. "They're not pretty," he admitted, looking at the angular, asymmetric vessels, "but they're fast and they're invisible to standard scans." Lieutenant Amara Okafor, formerly of the Nigerian Space Agency, would lead the first ship. Her crew, like all the others, had trained in virtual reality pods programmed with every scrap of data gathered about Krylothian space combat. "We can't match their experience," she told her pilots, "so we'll have to outthink them." The launch window approached. Dr. Sato's quantum network hummed with encrypted communications as resistance cells worldwide prepared synchronized disruptions. They couldn't hide 15 ships launching into orbit, but they could give the Krylothians too many targets to track. "All vessels, final checks," Harrison ordered from the command center. The admiral had aged years in months, but his voice carried the same authority. "Remember, we're not trying to win a space battle today. We're rewriting the rules of engagement." At precisely 300 UTC, Operation Icarus began. Across the globe, every piece of functional technology, human and Krylothian, began broadcasting random signals. Electromagnetic pulses flickered across cities. Thermal blooms appeared and disappeared. Sensor networks went haywire. In the confusion, 15 ships lifted off, their hybrid engines burning with impossible efficiency. Dr. Hassan's modifications worked better than anyone had dared hope, propelling the vessels with acceleration that would have crushed an unprotected crew. But humanity had planned for that too. Dr. Rodriguez's team had developed a gel that, when saturated with certain frequencies, became rigid enough to protect against high-G maneuvers. The pilots, suspended in tanks of this substance, could withstand forces that would tear conventional spacecraft apart. The Krylothian response was immediate but uncoordinated. Their orbital fleet, the most powerful ever seen in Earth space, found itself targeting phantom signals and sensor ghosts. By the time they identified the true threat, the human ships had already achieved their first objective. Lieutenant Ockafer's voice crackled through the quantum network. Phase 1 complete. We have successfully breached low Earth orbit, beginning attack pattern Delta. Attack pattern Delta was another innovation born of human desperation. Instead of engaging in traditional space combat, the Earth ships executed maneuvers that appeared suicidal to Krylothian tactical computers. They dove between their own weapons' fire, used gravitational slingshots that stressed their hulls to the breaking point, and deliberately flew into debris fields. "They're not following any known combat doctrine," a Krylothian commander reported to High Chancellor Vorax. "Our targeting systems can't establish predictive patterns." That was exactly the point. Dr. Sato had discovered that Krylothian combat computers required milliseconds longer to process unexpected scenarios. Those milliseconds meant the difference between life and death in orbital combat. The battle for Earth's orbit lasted 6 hours. By any conventional measure, it should have been a slaughter. 15 improvised human ships against a fleet of the most advanced warships in known space. But humanity wasn't fighting conventionally. Colonel Williams, coordinating ground support, gave the order for the ground-based offensive. Hidden electromagnetic pulse generators, built into the ruins of major cities, activated simultaneously. Krylothian ships suddenly found their shielding fluctuating, their systems resetting. In these moments of vulnerability, the human ship struck. Their weapons, designed by Dr. Hassan and his team, combined principles the Krylothians had never considered. Kinetic rounds charged with quantum-entangled particles. Missiles that carried no explosives but instead released clouds of specially engineered nanomaterials that interfered with Krylothian sensor systems. Commander Petrov's station provided real-time tactical updates, coordinating the seemingly chaotic human attacks into a complex strategic pattern. Each ship appeared to be fighting independently, but together they were executing a battle plan that existed in 4 dimensions, using time itself as a weapon. "We're not trying to destroy their fleet," Harrison explained to his staff as reports flooded in. "We're teaching them that controlling Earth's orbit costs more than they're willing to pay." The lesson was expensive for both sides. 3 human ships were lost, their crews sacrificing themselves to create opportunities for their companions. But for every human vessel destroyed, 2 Krylothian ships were forced to retreat, their systems compromised or their commanders unable to counter the unpredictable tactics. By the time High Chancellor Vorax ordered a general withdrawal to higher orbit, humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had proven that superior technology alone wasn't enough to maintain orbital supremacy. As the battle ended, Dr. Rodriguez made another crucial discovery. Analyzing debris from damaged Krylothian vessels, she found evidence that their technology wasn't as advanced as it appeared. "They've been using the same basic systems for millennia," she reported. "They don't innovate, they just refine what they already know." Lieutenant Ockafer, returning from the battle in one of the surviving ships, put it more simply. "They built a perfect machine, but we showed them that perfection can be beaten by adaptation." Admiral Harrison, watching the Krylothian fleet retreat to a higher orbit, knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had won its first major victory in space, but the war was far from over. Still, they had proven something vital not just to the Krylothians but to themselves. "Send word to all resistance cells," he ordered. "Operation Icarus was successful. Earth's low orbit is contested space now. Tell them—" He paused, allowing himself a moment of pride. "Tell them humanity is going to the stars, whether the Krylothians like it or not." Mars glowed red through the reinforced viewport of humanity's first true warship, the Phoenix. Captain Diego Ramirez stood on the bridge, watching as construction drones swarmed around the skeletal frames of more vessels under construction in Mars orbit. 6 months had passed since Operation Icarus, and humanity had not wasted a moment of their hard-won breathing space. "Status report on the Helios array?" he asked, turning to his executive officer, Commander Aisha Patel. The massive solar collection system, stretching across 50 kilometers of Martian orbit, represented humanity's answer to their energy needs. Operating at 87% capacity, Patel replied, her augmented eyes scanning multiple data streams simultaneously. Dr. Hassan's modifications are holding steady. We're generating more power than the entire Krylothian fleet thought possible from a primitive system. The Bridge of the Phoenix embodied humanity's new approach to space warfare. Unlike the sterile, geometric precision of Krylothian vessels, it was a hybrid of multiple technologies and design philosophies. Holographic displays merged with physical controls. Quantum computers worked alongside analog systems. Every system had at least 3 redundancies, each operating on different principles. Deep within the ship, Dr. Sato's latest quantum communication hub maintained constant contact with Earth, the lunar bases, and the growing Martian colony. "The network is evolving," he reported during the morning briefing. "Each new node makes it more stable, more unpredictable to outside observation." The Krylothians had withdrawn to the asteroid belt, maintaining a blockade that kept humanity confined to the inner solar system. But they had learned to be cautious. Every probe they sent to test Earth's defenses encountered new weapons, new tactics, new ways of turning space itself into a battlefield. Admiral Harrison, now commanding from the recently liberated Lunar Command Center, had orchestrated humanity's expansion with careful precision. "We're not just building ships," he reminded his commanders during strategic sessions. "We're building a space-faring civilization that can defend itself." The Innovation Center in Val's Marineris had become the heart of humanity's technological revolution. Dr. Rodriguez led a team of xenobiologists and engineers, combining their understanding of Krylothian biology with human ingenuity. "Their greatest weakness," she explained to a group of ship designers, "is their inability to comprehend how many different ways humans can solve the same problem." Professor Xiang Chen, formerly of the Beijing Quantum Research Institute, had made perhaps the most significant breakthrough. Studying captured Krylothian navigation systems, she discovered why their ships could never match human vessels in maneuverability. "Their entire approach to space travel is based on perfect efficiency," she explained, her hologram flickering in command centers across human space. "They plot every course to minimize energy expenditure, but in combat, the most efficient path is often the most predictable." This insight led to the development of the Chaos Drive, engines that deliberately introduced controlled uncertainty into their output. Krylothian targeting systems, designed to track logical flight paths, couldn't cope with ships that randomly varied their acceleration and trajectory. Colonel Williams, now General Williams, oversaw the training of space combat crews from a station hidden in Mars's polar orbit. "Forget everything you know about traditional space combat," he told each class of recruits. "We're not fighting in space like they do. We're fighting in space like humans do." The results were evident in every skirmish with Krylothian forces. Human ships danced through debris fields that alien vessels carefully avoided. They executed slingshot maneuvers around planets and asteroids that Krylothian computers classified as unsurvivable. They turned their own ships' exhaust into weapons, created artificial meteor swarms, and used solar flares as cover for attacks. Lieutenant Ackefer, promoted to squadron commander after Operation Icarus, led the first successful raid into the asteroid belt. Her ships, smaller and more agile than the Phoenix, demonstrated humanity's new combat doctrine. They didn't try to match Krylothian firepower, they made firepower irrelevant. "Target their predictability," she told her pilots. "Every time they start to adapt to one tactic, switch to another. Keep them guessing, keep them reacting, never let them settle into their comfort zone." The liberation of Ceres Base marked a turning point. The Krylothians had considered the asteroid fortress impregnable, protected by overlapping fields of fire and multiple defensive rings. They hadn't considered that humans would drill through the asteroid itself, emerging behind the defenses. Chief Engineer Park had developed the drilling ships, affectionately known as space moles by their crews. "Sometimes the best path isn't through space at all," he noted as the first reports of success came in. "Sometimes you have to make your own path." The victory at Ceres gave humanity its first major shipyard beyond Mars orbit. More importantly, it proved that the Krylothian blockade could be broken. Supply lines were established, resources began flowing, and the human fleet grew. Back on the Phoenix, Captain Ramirez received the latest intelligence from Earth. Dr. Hassan's team had finished analyzing the captured Krylothian databases from Ceres. What they found changed everything. The Krylothian Empire isn't as unified as they pretend, Ramirez told his officers. There are other species they've subjugated, other civilizations they've guided into submission. And now they know that humanity has done what none of those species ever managed. We've proven their superiority is an illusion. Commander Petrov, whose orbital station network now extended throughout the inner solar system, detected the first signs of change in Krylothian communication patterns. "They're arguing among themselves," she reported. "Some factions want to negotiate, others want to commit their entire fleet to crushing us. They've never faced this situation before." Admiral Harrison saw the opportunity. Humanity had done more than develop new technologies and tactics. They had shaken the foundations of an empire that had dominated space for millennia. The time had come to push their advantage. "All commands," he broadcast through the quantum network, "prepare for Operation Prometheus. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting to free every species that these self-proclaimed guardians have enslaved." As the Phoenix led its battle group out of Mars orbit, Captain Ramirez felt the weight of history. Humanity had broken their chains, but that was just the beginning. They had learned to fight in ways the Krylothians couldn't predict. Now they would learn to win in ways the Krylothians couldn't imagine. "All ships battle stations," he ordered. "Let's show them what humanity can really do when we put our minds to it."